What's up, everyone? This is your host, Ghost, coming to you live with another wonderful video. How is everyone doing today? Doing well myself. All right. A little late, but that's all good. Let's see. So we got a few things we're going to talk about. We got some SCOTUS opinions that just came down. Mostly the Chevron being strike down. Chevron deference, I guess, is the correct definition. And the obstruction charges of January Sixers. So we'll check those out here real quick. I'm not going to read the full document. Or anything, but we'll go through some blogs and give a little background. And then we're going to check out some more of the fallout for the from the what's it called? From the debates that happened Thursday. Got like some CNN stuff, and then we'll watch the analysis that happened right after the debate that I missed because I didn't think it would be important. I thought they ended up blowing smoke up Biden's ass, but turns out they actually spoke the truth. So we'll check that out. And then we'll also check out the views cope of it all. And then we're going to check out ring cam footage of an ex-wife that's just, I don't know, petty and angry, I guess is the correct best term. Is she's an angry woman. So we'll check out that ring camera footage. And then finally, we'll check out a clip from Fresh and Fit's IRL that they did Friday. I think it was Friday at least. So yeah, that's the plan for today. So make sure you follow me on X at officialwghost. That's the best way to find out when I go live and what I am up to. You could also watch me live if you choose to. Rumble is, of course, rumble.com/withghost. And then YouTube is youtube.com/@withghost. And Twitch is twitch.tv/officialwithghost. And then my gaming channels, although I have yet been streaming on gaming stuff for a while. For Rumble is Gaming with Ghosts, and for YouTube it's at Official Gaming with Ghosts. So links are in the description, but check me out there. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, FYI, I will be doing a reaction to a debate that Andrew Wilson did Friday, I think. I think it was Friday. We're going to check that debate out. I am waiting for it to, get on his channel because he took it down, but I know later on he's going to end up putting it back up, or we might just go to Raging Tomato and watch it there. But I haven't decided yet. But we'll do that tomorrow. I'm doing it tomorrow because I don't go to the gym on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I have a little bit more time before I have to go to work. And Mondays are generally my short days now, anyways. So just gonna check crucible.video. See if so it's still not on there. No problem. But yeah, so we'll probably go to the Raging Tomato who ended up posting it. And yeah. So there we go. All right. So moving on. Let's get to it. Excuse me. All right. So Supreme Court strikes down Chevron, curtailing power of federal agencies. Now, some of you are probably wondering, what is Chevron? What is Chevron? Well, Chevron was basically federal agencies being able to basically like interpret law, and we were supposed to basically defer like people the government would defer to law enforcement's definition of various things. So for example, when the ATF decided to, hey, um, we're going to define a firearm like this, or this is what makes a machine gun a machine gun. Agencies would defer to that. Basically, is what it ended up being. But that's the basics I could be. Is it just ends up we end up just deferring. We end up just deferring to what federal agencies have to say on a certain matter. I think that's a basics. This is as broad as I can give it. Maybe hopefully you'll do a little better job than I just did. So maybe someone has a better explanation. Hold on. I have to get some AC going here. All right. Okay, here we go. Here's a good definition of it. A lot better than I can do. So a family fishing company, Loper Bright Enterprise, was driven out of business because they couldn't afford the $700 per day they were being charged by the National Marine Fishers Services to monitor their company. The thing is, the federal law doesn't authorize NMFS to charge businesses for this. They just decided to start doing it in 2013. Why did they? Why did they think they could get away with it? Charging people without any legal authorization. Because in 1984, in the Chevron decision, the Supreme Court decided that regulatory agencies were the experts in their field, and the courts would just defer to their interpretation of the law. So for the past 40 years, federal agencies have been able to interpret laws to whatever they want, to mean whatever they want, and the court had to just go with it. It was called Chevron deference. It put bureaucrats in charge of the country. It's how the OSHA was able to decide that everyone who worked for a large company had to get the jab or be fired. No law gave them that authority. They just made it up. It's how the ATF was able to decide a piece of plastic was a machine gun. It's how the NCRS was able to decide that a small puddle was a protected wetland. It's how out-of-control agencies have been able to create rules out of thin air, force you to comply, and courts had to simply defer to them because they were the experts. So that's a lot better of an explanation of what Chevron deference is. So let's go and get down into this SCOTUS blog. Let's see what I have to say. A major ruling on Friday cut back the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court in a major ruling, the Supreme Court on Friday. It's probably a lot quieter. On Friday, cut back sharply on the power of federal agencies to interpret the laws they administer and rule that courts should rely on their own interpretations of ambiguous laws. The decision will likely have far-reaching effects across the country, from environment regulation to healthcare costs. In a vote of 6-3, justices overruled their landmark 1984 decision in Chevron versus National Resource Defense Council, which gave rise to the doctrine known as the Chevron doctrine. Um, so 6-3. All right, I'm gonna guess the three were probably Sotomayor, Kagan, and Katanji Brown Jackson. Those are my guess. Okay. So, under that doctrine, if Congress has not directly addressed the question at the center of a dispute, a court was required to uphold the agency's interpretation of the statute as long as it was reasonable. Oh, shit. I didn't realize. All right. I know I just you're probably like, oh, he just read it down here. I really didn't see the dissent part right here on the bottom. I just guessed. And it wasn't that big of a stretch to guess, honestly. I mean, come on, they're always the dissent whenever something seems fairly logical at this point. But in a 35-page ruling by Chief Justice John Roberts, the justice rejected that doctrine, calling it fundamentally misguided. Justice Elaine Kagan dissented in an opinion joined by Justice Sonia Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson. Kagan predicted the Friday's ruling will cause a major shock to the legal system. Oh, you mean the government can't just run roughshod and just like, hey, I'm just going to decide this thing is this thing? When the Supreme Court first issued its decision in the Chevron case more than 40 years ago, the decision was not necessarily regarded as a particularly consequential one. But in the years since then, it became one of the most important rulings on federal administrative law, citing by courts more than 18,000 times. Although the Chevron decision, which upheld the Reagan era Environment Protection Agency interpretation of Clean Air Act, has eased regulation on emissions, was generally hailed by conservatives at the time. The ruling eventually became a target for those seeking to curtail the administrative state, who argued the courts, rather than federal agency, should say what the law means. Justices had rebuffed earlier requests, including by one of the same lawyers who argued one of the cases here, to consider overruling Chevron before they agreed last year to take up a pair of challenges to a ruling issued by National Marine Fisheries Services. The agency had required the herring industry to pay the cost, estimated at $710 per day, associated with carrying observers on board their vessels to collect data about their catch and monitor for overfishing. The agency stopped the monitoring in 2023 because of lack of funding. While the program was in effect, the agencies reimbursed fishermen for the cost of the observers. After two federal court of appeals rebuffed challenges to the ruling, two sets of commercial fishing companies came to the Supreme Court asking the justice to weigh in. Let's see. The justice took up their appeal, agreeing to address only the Chevron question in Relentis v. Department of Commercial and Lober Bright Enterprise v. Raimondo. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson dissented in the Relentless case, but was recused from the Low Bright case, presumably because she heard oral arguments in the case while she was still a judge at the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. Chevron deference, Robert explained in his opinion for the court on Friday, is inconsistent with the Administration Procedure Act, a federal law that sets out the procedures that federal laws must follow, as well as instructions for courts to review actions by those agencies. The APA, Roberts noted, direct courts to decide legal questions by applying their own judgment, and therefore makes clear the agency's interpretation of statutes, like agencies' interpretations of the Constitution, are not entitled to deference. Under the APA, Roberts concluded, it's thus remained the responsibility of the court to decide whether the law means what the agency says. Roberts rejects any suggestion that agencies, rather the courts, are better suited to determine what ambiguities in the federal law might mean. even when those ambiguities involve technical and scientific questions that fall within an agency's area of expertise. Roberts emphasized Congress expects courts to handle technical statutory questions. Sorry. And courts also have the benefit of briefing from the parties and the friends of the court. Moreover, Roberts observed, even if courts should defer to an agency's interpretation of an ambiguous law that it administers, it can consider that interpretation when it falls within the agency's purview, a doctrine known as Skidmore deference. Stare decisis, the principle that courts should generally adhere to their past cases, does not provide a reason to uphold the Chevron doctrine. Roberts continued. Roberts can characterize the doctrine as unworkable. One of the criteria for overruling prior precedent, because it's so difficult to determine whether a statute is indeed ambiguous. And because of the Supreme Court's constant tinkering with the doctrine, along with its failure to rely on the doctrine in 8 years, there's no reason for anyone to rely on Chevron. To the contrary, Roberts suggested the Chevron doctrine allows agencies to change course even when Congress has given them no power to do so. Roberts indicated that the court's decision on Friday would not require early cases that relied on Chevron to be overturned. Mere reliance on Chevron cannot constitute a special justification for overruling. A decision upholding agency actions because it says a precedent relied on Chevron is at best just an argument that the precedent was wrongly cited, which is not enough standing alone to overrule the case. Let's see. Supreme Court is expected to rule on Monday when the statute of limitations to challenge agencies' actions begin to run. Federal government has argued that in the case that Corner Post versus Federal Reserves, that if the challenger prevails, it would open the door for a wide range of belated challenges to agency regulation. Justice Clarence Thomas has penned a brief concurring opinion in which he emphasized that the Chevron doctrine was inconsistent not only with the Administrative Procedure Act, but also with the constitutional division of power among the three branches of government. The Chevron doctrine, he argued, required judges to give up their constitutional power to exercise their independent judgment, and it allows the executive power to exercise powers not given to it. Justice Neil Gorsuch filed a long 33-page concurring opinion in which he emphasized that the day the court places a tombstone on Chevron, no one can miss. In doing so, the court returns judges to interpretive rules that have guided federal courts since the nation's founding. He sought to downplay the impact of Friday's ruling, contending that all today's distinction means is that going forward, federal courts will do exactly as this court has since 2016, exactly as it did before the mid-1980s, and exactly as it has done since the founding, resolve cases and controversy without any systemic bias in the government's favor. Kagan, who read a summary or dissent from the bench, was sharply critical of the decision to overrule the Chevron doctrine. Congress often enacts regulatory laws that contains ambiguities and gaps, she observed, which agencies must then interpret. The question, as she framed it, is who decides which of the possible readings of those laws should prevail? The courts, obviously. For 40 years, she stressed, the answer to that question has generally been the agency, with good reasons. Agencies are more likely to have the technical and scientific expertise to make such decisions. So the courts are unable to get their own, or the courts are unable to accept, this doesn't bar courts from agencies from bringing in their own experts and making their argument for them. It just now means that there's an even playing field. Like if like it said in that tweet I just read, if an agency decide that your small puddle is considered a wetland, now you actually have an equal playing field to argue that it's not, and not have your own fucking your government taking part of your land and trying to preserve it as a quote unquote wetland. So Let's see. She emphasized the deep roots that Chevron has had in the U.S. legal system for decades. As implied, it has been applied in thousands of judicial decisions. It has become the part of the wrap and woof of modern government, supporting regulatory efforts to all kinds. To name a few, keep air and water clean, food and drugs safe, and financial markets honest. Yeah, financial market honest. By overruling the Chevron doctrine, the court has created a jolt to the legal system. Gagan also pushed back against the majority's suggestion that overruling the Chevron doctrine would introduce clarity in judicial review of agencies' interpretations, noting the majority asserts that agencies' interpretations may be entitled to respect going forward. She observes that if the majority thinks the same judges who argue today about where ambiguity resides are not going to argue tomorrow about what respect requires, I fear it will be gravely disappointed. Okay, whatever. Similarly, she questioned the majority's assertion that Friday's decision would not call into question decisions that relied on Chevron doctrine to uphold agencies' actions. Courts motivated to overrule an old Chevron-based decision can always come up with something to label a special justification. She posted, all a court needs to do is look at today's opinion to see how it is done. Okay, so what? But more broadly, Kagan rebuked her colleagues in the majority for what she characterized as a judicial power grab. She laminated that by overruling Chevron, the court had, in one fell swoop, given itself exclusive power over every open issue, no matter how expertise driven or policy laden involving the means of regulatory law. So, but it was originally in their power. Where does it say that federal agencies could just interpret the law how they decide? That's what it basically ends up being. So now it's up to the courts. Now you get a fair shake of arguing that, hey, no, the agency's wrong here, and you don't automatically going into a losing battle. Roman Martinez, who argued the case on behalf of one of the fishing companies, applauded the decision by ending Chevron deference. He said in a statement, "The court has taken a major step to preserve the separation of power and shut down unlawful agencies' reach. Going forward, judges will be charged with interpreting the law faithfully, impartially, and independently, without deference to the government. This is a win for individual liberty and the Constitution." But Kim Meyer, the litigation director of the Southern Environmental Law Center, decried the ruling in a statement. Supreme Court today says individual judges around the country should decide the best reading of a statute. This is a recipe for chaos, as hundreds of federal judges who lack the expertise of agency personnel are certain to reach inconsistent results on the means of federal laws as applied to complex and technical issues. Well, then it's your job, agencies, to come in and explain it and have an argument good enough that it sways that judge's opinion. But it also means that, the person that you're trying to fuck over has an equal playing field and the ability to go and get their own experts and say, no, this person's bullshitting you. And then the courts don't have to go like, well, I'm Chevron deference. I just got to defer to this person. Friday's ruling, came in one of the three cases during the 2023-24 seeking to curtail the power of federal agencies and conservative efforts, sometimes dubbed the war on the administrative state. In October, the court heard arguments in a challenge to the constitution of the mechanism used to fund the consumer watchdog Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Last month, the court upheld the CFPB's funding by a 7-2 vote. And on Thursday, the Justice Part back the power of the Securities and Exchange Commissions and other administrative agencies, holding that the SEC cannot continue to use in-house procedures to impose fine in securities fraud cases. All right. So there we go. So that's the end of agencies' power, which is good. Again, all this does is just ensure that you get a fair shake now. So that's all that happens. You get a fair shake. All right. You're able to make your argument and have, as a 50-50 shot of being getting the outcome you want. That's all this really does. I highly doubt they're going to say, all right, everything made by Chevron deference since now has been and needs to be relooked at. I doubt that's going to end up happening. I don't think there's anything wrong with curtailing government power. I don't know. It's just me. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. All right. So if you guys remembered, I covered this. It was Fisher versus what was it? Hold on. Let's see. It's Fisher versus US. Oh shit. All right, they just dropped the Trump's immunity case. So hold on. We're nope. We got something new. They just dropped Trump versus United States. This is something we've been looking forward to for a while now. It's 119 pages. I just want to see what the fucking opinion is. All right. All right, this is syllabus. This is 119 pages. I'm not reading this. Sorry. Okay. Opinion of the court. Yeah, I do not have the patience to read 119 pages. That is fucking ridiculous. So, if you guys don't remember, this case here is the one determining whether Trump has immunity for criminal prosecution. They decide that he does, then it's going to end up being problems for a lot of the case. Okay. Well, okay. So let's see. Okay. Okay, there we go. So here it is, right here. All right. So it is these enduring principles that guide our decision in this case. The president enjoys no immunity for his unofficial acts, and not everything the president does is official. The president is not above the law, but Congress may not criminalize the president's conduct in carrying out the responsibility of the executive branch under the Constitution and the system of separated powers designed by the framers and have always demanded an energetic, independent executive. The president, therefore, may not be prosecuted for exercising his constitutional power, and he is entitled, at minimum, to a presumptive immunity from his prosecution for all his official acts. That immunity applies equally to all occupants of the Oval Office, regardless of politics, policy, or party. The judgment of the Court of Appeals for D.C. Court is vacated, and the case is remanded for further proceedings. So there you go. There we go. Trump has immunity. It's not surprising. It's not surprising at all. Okay, Justice Sotomayor is dissenting. Shocking. So what this means... So is Justice Jackson. She's dissenting too. That's not surprising. Okay, cool. So Trump has gotten his immunity for his official acts. This is great. Surprise, this is not blown up yet on my Twitter. Okay. I'm sorry. I know we diverted from what we were originally going to talk about, but this is far more important. Sorry. Okay. So basically, if I, I'm not reading through this entire fucking argument, but because it's fucking long, so I'll probably cover it more tomorrow. Um, well, someone else fucking does it for me. Um, so yeah, Trump doesn't have, so he has immunity for official acts, and then he does not have immunity in private matters, which is the obvious ruling that was going to happen. Obviously, you can't give the president immunity for doing private conduct, but of course, he should have immunity in for for official acts. So that was definitely given. Just want to see. Because it just dropped. So probably after this January 6th case, we'll get someone doing a little better job. Because I'm not reading that whole 119-page opinion. It's 119 pages, but the gist of it was Trump is immune for official acts. Any non-official acts he's not immune from. Uh, so now it's his argument. Now for a lot of his cases, he needs to argue that this was an official act and this was a non-official act. And even if that official act led into something like after his presidency ended, if it happened before during his presidency, like if it started during his presidency and he finished up after he was out of office, it's still considered an official act. So I mean that also means that more than likely his his election case in Georgia, that's probably going to get dropped now because everything he did there was, well, for the most part, a lot of what he did was an official acts. Um, the election people, like the sending elected official or like a electoral whatever it was to Congress saying they were the elected officials for the electoral college or whatever it was. That one might be murky, but the majority of that case is done with of the elections fraud case. Uh, Jack Smith's case is probably gonna get thrown out. So this is all good. So big win for Trump. Trump gets immunity. Sorry. Now, this is how it's going to end up going. It's probably going to be a 6. It's probably going to be like a 6v3, and the three are going to be is going to be Sotomayor, uh, uh, Katanji Brown Jackson, and Kagan. That's who there's going to be the three, for sure. I don't think. I don't think. I don't think Robert sided with the dissent. I think he ended up ruling with it, but I don't know for sure. All right, so here's a better. This is from CNN, so take it with a grain of salt. But this is what we're gonna go with. All right, so the Supreme Court ruled Monday that Donald Trump may claim immunity from criminal prosecutions for some of the actions he took in the waning days of his presidency, in a decision that will likely further delay a trial on his federal election subversion charges pending against him. In the most closely watched case before the Supreme Court, the ruling rejects a decision from the Federal Appeals Court in February that found Trump enjoyed no immunity for alleged crimes he committed during his presidency to reverse the 2020 election. We conclude our constitutional structures are separate of power. Okay, so yeah, Justice. Okay, so you did cool. So, in the nature of president's power requires the former president have some immunity from criminal prosecution for official acts during his tenure in office, Chief Justice Roberts wrote in Monday's opinion. At least with respect to the president's exercise of his core constitutional power, this immunity must be absolute. The president enjoys no immunity for his unofficial acts, and not everything the president does is official. The president is not above the law. So there we go. And again, this was the obvious ruling that needed to be made. Of course, the president has immunity for his official acts. It just made logical sense. But obviously, no, in his when he doesn't have in his non-official acts, obviously he wouldn't have any immunity there. That was pretty obvious. So it was kind of ridiculous that we were having this argument. Of course, the president during with his official acts gets immunity, and the way you defeat that immunity is very simple. You take and you remove. You go. Sorry, you you go and sorry. Forgot what I was saying. Sorry, I got distracted. I was tweeting. But yeah, this was an obvious decision. All right, this was a decision that definitely should have been made. It should have been obvious like from the get go. So yeah, my prediction was correct when I made it. Was that like Chief Justice Roberts was like an either or. I felt he was a little more on the giving the president immunity, and it turns out I was right. So yeah, and the three who I thought was going to dissent were the three who dissented. Like obviously. Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson for sure. I'm assuming Kagan did as well. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. So it was 6-3. So yeah, so Ketanji Brown Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor. They all voted against. Everyone else voted for. This was an obvious ruling. This was an obvious ruling. And guess what? This protects Biden too. Because, now Trump can't go, although prior he could have gone after Biden for his work on the border and the crap he did there, blah, blah, blah. And he could have done that when he got into when he gets elected. Now Trump can't do that. So this also protects Biden, protects all presidency. This was an obvious ruling they were going to make because a lot of them weren't really focused on Trump. Okay, they were thinking of the future. If they ruled president doesn't get any immunity for official actions, it would extremely destroy our democracy as we knew it. It would, because as soon as the president got it, the president would be like, well, if I make this decision and it comes out, well, then if I make this decision and someone's gonna sue me at the end, so it's gonna end up neutering the president severely. And again, the arguments that were being made is well, there was always that fear, blah, blah, and the presidents have done it well. Yeah, but because there was basically this is an official immunity agreement, but what the thing is there was a non-official handshake, wink, wink, nudge, nudge agreement between prior presidents. Hey, it's basically a mea culpa. As long as you didn't get impeached, whatever you did, we're not going to go after you. That's basically what it was. But then Biden fucked that up and decided, hey, I'm going to go after my political opponent. Now we needed an official immunity agreement. And again, the way you get rid of that immunity is you impeach him. Once you impeach him, that removes that immunity and allows him to be prosecuted. So it was always obvious Trump had immunity, but apparently people are just retarded. All right, so moving on. So going back in time, prior to my before the immunity agreement, there's the Fisher case. He was a January 6er who was prosecuted and was arguing that being charged with obstruction of official proceedings was wrong and unlawful or unconstitutional. I can't remember. I predicted this was going to be not for him. I turned out to be wrong. Hey, 1 out of 2. Or yeah. So I'm 1 for 1 at the moment. It just sounded to me that they were going more on the government side. I was wrong. All right. Now, this doesn't throw out all the, everything on January 6th. It just means that this obstruction charge that a lot of them got is thrown out. That's all it is. The Supreme Court on Friday threw out the charges against a former Pennsylvania police officer who entered the U.S. Capitol during the January 6, 2021 attack. By a vote of 6-3, the justice ruled that the law that Joseph Fisher was charged with violating, which bars obstruction of an official proceedings, applies only to evidence tampering, such as destruction of records or documents in official proceedings. The Friday's ruling could affect charges against more than 300 other January 6 defendants. The same law also at the center of 2 of the 4 charges brought by special counsel Jack Smith against former President Trump in Washington, D.C. All right, so Jack Smith now, so prior to this immunity agreement, this immunity ruling, Jack Smith already lost basically 2 of his charges. Okay. So that's what it seems. I don't know what the exact charges are, but basically 2 of his charges got basically taken away. If they're at the center of this, and it's the same law that's being applied that was applied to Joseph Fisher. So now he's only got real 2 charges he can stand on. Now he got an immunity agreement. So now, not an agreement, but immunity ruling. So now those 2 charges are probably going to be those 2 other charges. So basically, Jack Smith's case against Trump is probably dead in the water at this point. The Supreme Court heard oral arguments on April 25th on Trump's claims of immunity and is yet to yet to issue its decision in that case. Well, that's obviously this is old. But Smith has argued that even if the court were to rule for Fisher, the charge against Trump could still go forward because they rested in part on efforts to issue false electoral certifications at the joint session of Congress. It's his argument. We'll see. Now the question is would sending an alternate electoral official official certifications, whatever, is that under the president's power? Because everyone keeps making big deals like, oh, he forced, you tried, but it wasn't really up to a Congress to, or it was, basically, they had two set of electoral certifications, like certifiers. Trump sent his own for that state. I can't remember what state it was. And then the state sent their own. They were basically an alternate state of electors. They, there's, oh, well, this was saying that, it's a big old argument, but it was saying like, oh, they had a paper saying that they were the official ones, but they really can't be the official ones because it's the state that won that really decides. But if the state said, hey, no, the people we sent aren't it, now they have a separate one. It's that kind of deal. So it's an argument that's going to be made. We'll see. Who cares? The law at the center of Fisher's case in 18.u.s.c, section 1512C2, which makes it a crime to otherwise obstruct, influence, or impede any official proceedings. U.S. District Judge Carl Nichols concluded not that because the previous subsection, section 1512C1, bars tampering with evidence with the intent to impair the object's integrity or availability for use in an official proceeding. Section 1512C2 only applies to cases involving evidence tampering that obstructs an official proceedings, and he dismissed the obstruction charges against Fisher. The U.S. Court of Appeals from the District of Columbia Circuit reversed Nichols' ruling, concluding that the means of the statute is unambiguous, so that it applies to all form of corrupt obstruction of an official proceedings, other than conduct that has already been covered by the prior subsection. On Friday, the Supreme Court vacated the D.C. Circuit decision, interpreting the law more narrowly to apply only to evidence tampering. Roberts explains the general principle used to construe statutes, instructs courts that a general phrase can be given a more focused meaning by the terms linked to it. Here, he continues, subsection C1 provides several specific examples of evidence tampering that the law prohibits, such as altering a record, concealing a document. When subsection C2 immediately follows those examples, he reasons the most sensible inference is that the scope of C2 is limited by the examples in C1. Indeed, he noted if subsection C2 sweeps as broadly as the government poised, there would be scant reason for Congress to provide any specific examples at all in subsection C1. Makes sense. Basically, what he's saying is, C1 is talking about only the examples that were made in C2 is talking about only the examples made in C1. And but if you interpret C2 as broadly sweeping, as broadly as it's been interpreted, then why have any specific examples at all? That's what he's basically saying. Roberts also pointed to the provision's history as additional support for the majority interpretation. Until the Enron scandal, the statute only made it a crime to use intimidation or physical force or persuade someone else to shred documents. The statute did not, Roberts noted, create liability for the person who actually shredded the documents, leading Congress to enact section 1512C to plug this loophole. It would be peculiar to conclude that in the closing the Enron gap, Congress actually hid away in the second part of the third subsection of the section 1512, a catch-all provision that reaches far beyond the document shredding and similar document scenarios that prompted the legislation in the first place. Yeah, I think this was a 7-2 decision. The government's expansive construction of subsection C2 would would have other effects as well. He suggested it would criminalize a broad swath of pro-SAC conduct, exposing activists and lobbyists alike to decades. In the case when the case returns to the D.C. Circuit, Roberts instructs the court can reconsider this obstruction charge against Fisher in light of our interpretation of 1512c2. Ketanji Brown Jackson joined Roberts' opinion, but also filed a concurring opinion in which she emphasized that despite the shocking circumstance involved in this case, or the government determination that they warrant prosecution today, this court's task is to determine what conduct is prescribed by the criminal statute that has been invoked on the basis of the obstruction charge at issue here. Jackson suggested that it beggar beliefs that Congress would have inserted a breathtaking broad first of its kind criminal obstruction statute accompanied by a 20-year maximum penalty in the midst of a significant more granular series of obstruction prohibitions without clarifying its intent to do so. Jackson also made clear that at least it was a 6-3. Amy Coney Barrett. He was charged, he stressed, with corruptly obstructing a proceedings before. Okay. Jackson also made clear that, at least in her view, the charges against Fisher could still go forward. He was charged, she stressed, with corruptly obstructing a proceedings before Congress, specifically Congress certification of the electoral vote, which used records and documents. If Jackson posed the conduct at the center of the charges against Fisher involved the impairment or the attempted impairment of the availability or integrity of things used during the January 6th proceeding, the charges against him can go forward. Amy Coney Barrett dissented in an opinion joined by Justice Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan. Although events like January 6th may not have been the target of subsection C2, she acknowledged nothing in the parenthetical who could blame the Congress for failure of imagination. She argued the court should stick to the text when statutes go further than the problems that inspire them. Instead, she contend the court does textual backflips to find some way, anyway, to narrow the reach of each subsection C2. For Barrett, the text of subsection C2 clearly supports government's broad interpretation. Subsection C2, she asserts, covers all sorts of actions that affect or interfere with official proceedings, and the word otherwise does not limit its scope. Barrett also rejects the majority contend that the government interpretation could lead to lengthy criminal sentences against activists and lobbyists. First, she noted a defendant can only be convicted under subsection C2 if the government can show he acted corruptly. Second, although law calls for a maximum sentence of 20 years, it does not specify a minimum sentence, suggesting that Congress believed the conduct covered by law may run the gambit from major to minor. In a statement, Attorney General Merrick Garland indicated that he was disappointed by this ruling, but stressed that the vast majority of more than 1,400 defendants charged for illegal actions on January 6th will not be affected by this decision. There are no cases, Garland said, in which the department charged a January 6th defendant only with the offense at issue in Fisher. Yeah, but it would lower a lot of the sentences that have been made. So, it's not going to end up like, freeing anyone more than likely, but the sentence they got for it would probably end up being lowered, which is basically the idea. So it's good. It's a good thing, right? All right. So, moving on, we're going to talk about the debates. So, looking at a CNN poll here, after the debates, let's see, this happened. When was this made? Okay, well, I don't know when this was made. But after the debates, Biden has an approval of 38, a disapproval of 58. Okay. So his disapproval has risen while his approval has fell. His disapproval has already been big, but now it's It's leapt since the debates. It's not really surprising. He did a very poor job, and it has caused a lot of Democrats to start to freak the fuck out, which is hilarious. I got like 22 minutes before I got to call it quits. So we'll check this out. We're gonna. This is from the analysis after the debate. As is my custom, 1.5 speed. Apparently, closed caption is unavailable. I messed up and I didn't get this, watch this when it happened, so it's my bad. We'll only do a portion of it, really. But yeah, here we go.
Making their way off the CNN debate stage. It's like Joe Biden, the first lady, has come out. Former President Trump walking off the stage. The first debate of the 2024 campaign and the earliest presidential debate ever now in the books and in front of the voters. Tonight, along with Aaron Burnett, the first word on what those voters might make of it from our political professionals, from our CNN Flash Poll and Swing State Focus Group. We'll be talking to surrogates, including Vice President Harris, getting fact checks from our Daniel Dale, and new reporting from inside both campaigns. With me here, CNN political commentator Scott Jennings, Kate Bedingfield, David Urban, Van Jones, Alyssa Farr Griffin, and Newsnight anchor Abby Phillip, David Axelrod, and CNN Chief National Correspondent John King. John, let me start with you. Your thoughts.
Anderson, this was a game-changing debate in the sense that right now, as we speak, there is a deep, a wide, and a very aggressive panic in the Democratic Party. It started minutes into the debate, and it continues right now. It involves party strategists, it involves elected officials, it involves fundraisers. And they're having conversations about the president's performance, which they think was dismal, which they think will hurt other people.
So this is CNN. Right after the debate, this is CNN, and they are freaking out. They are terrified. Everyone knows that this was a shit debate for Biden. Biden sucked. Everyone knew it. It's so bad, even CNN knew it.
Down the party in the ticket, and they're having conversations about what they should do about it. Some of those conversations include, should we go to the White House and ask the president to step aside? Other of the conversations are about, should prominent Democrats go public with that call? Because they feel this debate was so terrible. They do say, in moments in the debate later, the president got better and got his footing, but then at the end, even his closing statement was a little halting. The contrast between the two candidates. Let me be clear. None of them, and a lot of Republicans, don't think Donald Trump had a great night. Donald Trump broke the fact check machine more than I can count tonight. That will be on the record as we go forward. He refused to answer some very specific and direct questions about his conduct, about January 6th and what all. So that will be dealt with out there. And sometimes there's a parallel universe between the political elites and the American people. It'd be nice to see what the voters say. But I can tell you, it started minutes in. It started with the first couple of answers, and it has continued throughout the night from oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, to what do we do about this? And it involves very senior people in the Democratic Party, including elected officials, saying we have a problem.
Just to co-sign what John is saying, I mean, the panic that I am hearing from Democrats is not like anything that I have heard in this campaign so far. And a lot of it has to do with, first of all, there was a deep frustration about Trump's lies. I mean, he lied a lot tonight. But the
See, I love this. They're like, oh, there's a deep frustration of Trump's lies. Guess what? Okay, Biden lied just as much. All right. I think I read it. I don't remember exactly who, but it was basically what it ended up basically being is Biden and Trump both lied basically equally. Okay. It was basically equal. All right. That's all it was. This is ridiculous that we kept Trump lied a lot. Well, Biden lied just as much. So stop it. All right.
the problem for Biden was that Trump was able to take sometimes incredible falsehoods and turn them into some kind of argument, whereas Biden's answers were, in a lot of cases, not coherent, deeply problematic, that he was not able to take pretty straightforward answers and answer them to the American public, and then also at some points bringing things up that teed up Trump attacks. So there's a real concern here tonight that there's been some real damage done that cannot be undone. Biden solidified the perception among voters, but especially among his base. They were hoping that tonight would be a game changer. They are now seeing a president who is in the White House, who they do not necessarily believe can do this for another 4 years.
David Axelrod?
Look, I can't argue with either of them about how Democratic leaders are reacting to this poll. We said at the beginning that each person had a fundamental goal. And for Biden, that goal was to appear energetic, engaged, and look like someone who is capable of serving for another 4 years for president. That was job number one. I actually think he scored a bunch of points. I think.
So another thing in an article, Debate Watcher says 67% to 33% that Trump turned in a better performance Thursday prior to the debate. The same voters said 55 to 45 that they expected Trump to turn in a better performance than Biden. And so a near universal 96% of GOP debate watchers say Trump did a better job in the debate, while a more modest 69% of Democratic debate watchers viewed Biden as the Knights. Let's see. 85% of GOP debate watchers credit Trump with doing more than his rival to address concerns about his ability to handle the presidency. Yeah, I mean, he did. He was like, I took 2 cognitive tests. I aced them. Okay. So unless that comes out and we get the showing that's not true or anything, that's what happened. By contrast, only 53% of Democratic debate watchers say that Biden did a better job at addressing concerns, with 27 saying neither candidate did much, allaying concerns about their abilities. Okay, so there we go.
I think if you just judge this on sort of policy stuff, he did score a bunch of points on issues like abortion, for example, on some of the economic issues.
No, he didn't.
But there is a feeling. I think there was a sense of shock, actually, how he came out at the beginning of this debate, how his voice sounded. He seemed a little disoriented. He did get stronger as the debate went on, but by that time, I think the panic had set in, and I think you're going to hear discussions that I don't know will lead to anything, but there are going to be discussions about whether he should continue. And I think part of it is Donald Trump did not meet his mission either. He could not resist the temptation to be nasty.
See, this is the problem with CNN is they forget that's what like Trump. That's what people like about Trump. They like that he's nasty. They like that he gets in and just insults these idiots and goes and like, this guy's wrong. This guy's dumb. Slow Joe. He called Biden Brandon. Come on, like. That's what people voted for Trump. People like that about Trump. They do. Shock. I'm sorry. I'm sure you don't understand that, but people like that of Trump.
Prevaricate about a whole bunch of things, about his own record, about Biden's record, and to seem petty and small at times. So what you saw was a candidate who's deeply vulnerable and a president who may not be able to take advantage of it.
Listen, if anybody in America thinks that was even close to being an okay debate by Joe Biden, I'm living in a parallel universe. It was an unmitigated disaster for President Biden from the second he walked out to the closing statement. The biggest issue for Democrats is abortion, and he couldn't give an answer. He gave an answer, he couldn't even give a coherent answer on the biggest issue for Democrats tonight. I've heard from leading Democrats across the United States, elected governors, congressmen, who are texting me and saying, I'm worried I'm going to lose if Joe Biden's at the top of the ticket. Bob Casey, I promise you tonight, in the state of Pennsylvania, is thrown up in his mouth because he knows if he's got to stand next to Joe Biden, he's going down in Pennsylvania. If he's on the ticket, I don't know how it's going to work.
Yeah, look, it was a really disappointing debate performance from Joe Biden. I don't think there's any other way to slice it. His biggest issue that he had to prove to the American people was he had the energy, he had the stamina, and he didn't do that. And so I think that is of concern. And I think for a lot of Democrats, that's very disappointing. I will say Donald Trump also had some really rough moments in this debate. And talking to the Biden campaign, they say their dials started really moving away from Trump as he was increasing his personal attacks on Biden. So I think there was a lot about his kind of character and the kind of personal nastiness that he was putting on display.
Look. No one gives a shit. All right, let's just make this clear. All right, no one really cares that Trump's nasty. Trump's being nasty. He's being mean. We don't care. We really don't care. That's not why we vote for. It's not something new. Okay, it's not something new. That Trump's nasty. Trump's mean. Trump's gross. Like, we don't care. Okay, this is what we want from Trump. We like someone who is nasty. We like someone who doesn't, just let anything, let some bullshit happen. We like that. So sorry if you're surprised by this, but it doesn't really matter to us if Trump's nasty.
That doesn't help him with the swing voters that he needs. And I also think you saw him continue to get sort of more.
No, she might be right about that. Probably doesn't help him with swing voters. That's all right. But when everyone seems to only because what I've been seeing lately is people saying, "Oh well, despite this performance, I'm voting for Biden," because they forget about the independent. All right, they forget about RFK. They're just only going to vote for it's okay to not like Trump. You may not like Trump all you want, blah, 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 blah. But what's going to happen is those swing voters who don't like Trump's nastiness are going to also see that Trump's, that Biden is far weaker than Trump. And, I'm thinking more going to vote for someone who's strong and nasty than someone who's weak and can't fucking get through a sentence without mumbling. And if they really don't like Trump, they'll just not vote. because everyone forgets about RFK. Everyone's like, everyone agrees that Biden's performed last night was terrible. And if you agree with that, then you shouldn't be voting for Biden, even if you're a Democrat. If you really don't like Trump, you should be voting for the Independent or the Libertarian Party. But you're not going to do that. You're just going to stay with your party lines. Because I think people forget about the Independent and all that stuff, and independents and libertarians and all that stuff. So what ends up happening is they forget about them and they just don't vote, or they'll vote for Trump, or even Trump's Biden's approval ratings dropped significantly, and it's not a surprise.
Animated across the course of the debate, and give some really problematic answers about January 6th, some really problematic answers about Putin. So Donald Trump did not get off scot-free tonight by any stretch. But look, there is no two ways about it. That was not a good debate for Joe Biden.
Ken? That was painful. I love Joe Biden. I work for Joe Biden. He didn't do well at all. He did not do well at all, and he looked. I'll give you the analysis. Kind of have the old man versus the con man. I can walk you through how I'm supposed to see it and say it, but I just want to speak from my heart. I love that guy. That's a good man. He loves his country. He's doing the best that he can.
He's not a good man. Stop it.
But he had a test to meet tonight to restore confidence of the country and of the base, and he failed to do that. And I think there's a lot of people who are going to want to see him consider taking a different course now. We're still far from our convention, and there is time for this party to figure out a different way forward if he will allow us to do that. But that was not what we needed from Joe Biden, and it's personally painful for a lot of people. It's not just panic, it's pain of what was done tonight.
And if I may just add to that, I think Joe Biden lost in the first 3 minutes. I think a lot of voters probably tuned out, and millions of people are having conversations with their families.
You're probably right. Like after that, they see Biden get on, and a lot of people just were like, they probably stopped watching. Like, this is ridiculous. I can't believe this. So
with their friends of if the president is up to the task and if he should step aside. And I'm someone who believes the former president is a threat to democracy. I think he is a threat to the America as we know it. He wants to fundamentally change our institutions. He has laid out what his plan is. I am not confident that that is the man to take him on. You cannot tell me democracy is on the line and then give that performance tonight. If based on that, in 18 weeks, Donald Trump will be the president-elect.
The people doing focus groups tonight, and we'll see if our dial group with Laura Coates confirms this, that Biden actually scores pretty well on the issues when he's talking about the substance. And Trump's numbers went down, both because he was ducking questions, he was lying about some things, and he was refusing to answer in some.
Look, you got to take CNN's analysis with a grain of salt. All right. Now, the fact that they're saying that Biden was poor and all that stuff, that's great. Okay. That tells you exactly that, how bad that performance was, when even CNN have to admit it. But this whole, Trump was lying. Biden lied just as much as Trump, if not and more. Okay. So let's get off this. Trump lied a lot. So did Biden. Okay. Fact checkers fact-checked Biden just as much as they did Trump. It's ridiculous at this point. All right. I think they all lied. Okay, cool. No one gives a shit if the politician lies anymore. And here's why. Because that's all they do is lie. They go in, promise a bunch of shit, and they're lying. The difference is with Trump is a lot of the stuff he said he ended up doing, or at least attempting. Most of the time we get, a bunch of lies, and they maybe attempt, or even do, if we're lucky, a third of what they actually say. But Trump actually did a lot of what he said. Okay, he didn't really do 100% well on it, but he did a lot, and people saw that and are like, all right, well, there's some consistency here at least. So, okay, Trump lied, Biden lied too. Okay, cool. They both lost on that issue. They both lied. Stop it.
Some of it was the tone. They don't like him. So when you see that, when you see sort of the statistics, you're going to look at that's a mixed bag. But to Vance's point about the president's performance, that's what caused the panic.
Look, here's the thing. Okay, you can be good on issue. Here's the thing. You can be good on the whole, you talked about issues well and all that stuff. You're good at that, blah, 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 fucking blah. But if you come out like you're horsed and you're, on the verge of croaking on the scene, on the debate stage, it doesn't really matter how well you did on everything else. It matters of how you appeared. Okay. Were you presidential? Were you something, people can have confidence in, that when you work, when you get on that stage and we have a crisis, you're going to be able to handle it. There's rumors, a White House aide or official or something like that, an anonymous White House official, says Biden's only dependable 6 hours a day. Otherwise, he's incoherent most of the time. Okay. There's news of that going out about now. So it's it's the whole reason RFK is not doing as well as he probably should have. He has that disease where he sounds weak. Okay. He's on his vocal cords really hard. Yeah, it's spasmodic dysphonia. Phonia. It's a condition, involuntary movement disorder that affects only the voice box. This condition causes muscles controlling the vocal cords to go into periods of spasm, resulting in his distinctive rasp. But to the American people, he sounds like RFK just sounds weak. He sounds like he's on the verge of crying, things of that nature. Okay, that's why RFK has to go independent, and he didn't even come close to getting the Democratic nomination, and he would never get the Republican nomination. I'm sorry, all right, shit like that, the way you sound, the way you appear, that's going to affect how you, because people want a strong leader. If you don't look strong, you're not getting the goddamn nomination.
Panic. So the question is, and my question actually is, what happens? Because it's a great political strength of Joe Biden is his resilience and his stubbornness. It's also sometimes a blind spot because he is so stubborn. It's going to be very hard to someone, and I don't know who it is, who could go to Joe Biden and say, you need to do this.
And apparently, Jill Biden is preventing anyone from trying to talk Biden out of running. Again, that's another rumor.
For one. And the question is, again, like I'm just telling you, to Abby's point, I've been doing this for 30-something years, going on 40 years, and I have never, ever had what happened on this thing tonight happen in the middle of the debate. It started early, and it continued. And to Van's point, Van made a very important point. These are people who love Joe Biden, who credit Joe Biden for kicking Donald Trump out of the White House. They're Democrats. The Democratic Party is a very diverse party. It fights about a lot of things. It has generational issues. It has regional issues and everything else. The thing that unites the Democratic Party is trying to keep Donald Trump from getting back into the White House. They love Joe Biden for kicking him out. They don't want him back. They came into this debate nervous that Biden was in a weak position. They leave this debate panicked.
John, if you love the guy, how could you put him out there? If you love him, if you love Joe Biden, if that was my father, you don't put a guy next to
It's a great point. These guys know this better. Yeah. These guys know this better because they talk to them. There's this legacy in the Democratic Party. You don't challenge the incumbent because when it's happened in the past, they haven't beaten the incumbent, and then the incumbent has lost the general election.
John King, I mean, what happens now?
A couple things happen. Number one, we wait. I would say we should wait. We won't, but we should wait a week and see how this settles out in the polling, particularly in the battleground state polling, and particularly among the most important subgroups.
It's not looking good for him. That's why.
Right now is I would just say that if the Trump people are running around saying they won the debate, we'll see if that holds up. Biden lost the debate. I don't know if Trump won the debate. The early indications we're getting.
Trump won the debate. All right. It doesn't matter what you say. Trump won the debate. Everyone agrees. 96%. I think it was just GOP debaters said, yeah, Trump won. So
again, from pollsters and party strategists.
Well, only 36% of Democratic ones said, oh yeah, Trump did or Biden did well. Like Trump won the debate. Sorry. It was 56. Or no, it was 69. 69% of Democratic voters said that debate watchers said that Biden won. 96 GOP debaters said that Trump won. Come on.
Is that Trump actually fared pretty poorly on the issues, and his tone was negative. So I don't think we don't have any evidence before us right now, in the hour after it ended, that Trump gained a lot of new voters. Put it that way, right? Did he hurt himself with the Trump base? Absolutely not. And so Donald Trump's going to get 40-something. He's going to get 40-something. Did he grow tonight? I'm a little skeptical of that. The main issue, though, is the president of the United States, the incumbent. Again, I don't know that the old rules apply because he's running against the former president, but this is my 10th one of these. And when the incumbent is running, the American people are being asked, keep what you got. Do you like what you got? Stay the course. That was not a stay-the-course performance from a president who, when he walked on stage, knew the fundamentals of this race were already bent against him. And they had a 38% approval rating, 60+% of the country thinks we're on the wrong track. And as Abby noted earlier, there were already significant doubts about, can you do this for 4 more years? It's the toughest job in the world. And so even in the middle of the debate saying he had a cold, I have a cold. I get it. I get it. That sucks.
Yeah, I have a cold. Yeah, no one believes that, all right? No one believes that Biden had a cold and that was why he had a poor performance. No one believes that.
But he's the president of the United States. When the phone rings at 3 o'clock in the morning, the world doesn't matter if you have a cold or not.
And the president did intensive preparation for this debate. I mean, that's the other part of this.
And they signaled that repeatedly.
They told him repeatedly. I mean, he was in Camp David. All of his top advisors were there. They were preparing him as well as they possibly could for this moment. He came in here saying, sorry, Van, just a moment, but he had to solidify. And it's not just his base, it's who voted for him the last time around, right? Now, who voted for him last time around was enough for him to beat Donald Trump. Donald Trump can stay just where he was the last time around. And if Joe Biden erodes so significantly that it's less than what Donald Trump got, Donald Trump wins. Okay, that's how the math works here. So he has to bring back all of those people, whether they're Democrats or not, who cast a ballot for him. Was he able to do that tonight? I don't think there's anybody who thinks that he was.
Well, I tell you, I am starting to get the pushback now from people who are not in agreement with us. I just want to get. I just didn't watch the debate. No, actually did. A major black leader just called me and kicked my butt, and so I just want to give the other side, which is that Republicans would never throw their guy overboard, even if they had a guy that had felony convictions, even if they had a guy that led an insurrection, even if they had a guy who was a serial liar, they would never throw their guy overboard. And there are people who are angry tonight. The Democratic Party leaders are already abandoning Joe Biden, and they're saying that we already know that he's older. And
because look, okay. Here's the reason why. All right, because the insurrection, felony convicted, blah, 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 blah. All that stuff is due to the fact that if you actually look at the charges, what he ended up being charged with, what he was convicted of, what he was held liable for, we see those. We actually paid attention. We read them. We watched the stories. We read the stories. We can see it's bullshit. Even CNN had to admit that the felony conviction against Donald Trump was bullshit. Okay. That's why Republicans aren't going to throw their guy under the bus over felony convictions, whatever else he fucking said, insurrection, all that shit. Because we understand and we can see it's bullshit. Now, if Donald Trump came out and did exactly what Biden did with, being unable to talk well, incoherent, looking off into space, looking lost, having that hoarse rasp and shit, we're abandoning him and getting behind at least RFK. Okay, that's what's gonna happen. What would happen. At least a lot of them. Okay, like even like this is ridiculous. Like, oh, we can't. Like, look, it doesn't matter who the person is. Whether he's the party, the nominee of the party you like and shit like that. It doesn't matter. We have to live in a country that has that. We have to live in this country, okay? And we want the American people, whether they, no matter how much they hate Trump or everything, the American people know they need a strong leader, all right? So in the back of their mind, they're going to see Biden's performance. And if in the next debate he acts just as bad, it's not going to be a good look for him, okay? It's going to end up like the next debate's in September. If it turns out that one's just as bad as this one, it's going to be over for him, okay? And it doesn't matter. Like, people should be abandoning Biden. This is not a good look. At this point, it's cruelty. So don't just be like, if you're gonna fall on your sword for a guy, at least be a guy who's somewhat competent. No one views Biden as competent at all.
Lower, but what he stands for matters. What he was, if you that's what I said. If you,
okay, whatever what he stands for matters. All right, that doesn't matter. Okay, if he's not able to do the job, and it appears like he can't, it doesn't matter. Fuck off.
Wrote out what he said. If you didn't listen to it, the substance of what he said is true to the Democratic Party, and there's a pushback beginning to say the Democratic Party is too scared to stand for Joe Biden. Other people will.
Yeah, but can I just respond? Yes, I believe this. I think when we see sort of voter surveys and so on of people who watch the debate and so on, they're going to be a lot different than you might think, because I don't think Donald Trump had a great night, and I think on substance Biden did fine, but that wasn't the big question about Biden. But here's the thing: people can love Joe Biden. Lots of Democrats do. I worked with him. I have deep respect for him.
Yes,
but as you said earlier, the stakes are enormous. You said democracy is on the line. And so it becomes less an issue about loyalty to one person than to the idea of how much are you willing to fight for.
I want to give a voice to other folks.
Let me jump in quickly on this point that Vantage made, because one of the reasons I started this voter project is Washington is often wrong about these things. So I'm always skeptical when all the elites in Washington or the people who live comfortable lives in Washington. This conversation is not just Washington. I want to make that clear tonight. This is Democrats across the country who are watching, Democrats who live in competitive areas, Democrats who love Joe Biden. It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. But the other question I would just raise is, so there has to be a conversation with the president after tonight, right? Some of those conversations will be from people who say, sir, you should step aside. But if you want to take Van's position out there, the main organizing impetus of the Democratic Party is keep Donald Trump in retirement, right? Keep him out of the White House. So if you won't step aside, what are the conversations about what to do about tonight? Those will have to happen. So my question for the people who know best, and the one who knows the best is sitting right over there, is who can have that conversation with the president?
Who's the only person in the party?
I mean, Bill Clinton.
All right. So that's the end of that. There's probably more. I got to get going here. So we're just going to do this because it's so short. So the Joe Behar view suggests the debate was skewed against Joe, and that's why he performed so poorly. Joe literally made the conditions for the debate, and it was held by his friends in the media.
There was something about the debate that threw him into this state that he was in, because watch this. While Donald Trump was probably enjoying a celebratory platter of cheeseburgers, President Biden made an appearance at a watch party a little while after the debate, and he scarcely resembled the guy from earlier in the evening. This is really unbelievable. Watch.
Look, folks, what's going to happen over the next couple of days is they're going to be out there fact checking all the things he said. I can't think of one thing he said that was true.
I can't think of one thing you said that was true, Joe.
No, I'm not being facetious. But look, we're going to beat this guy. We need to beat this guy. And I need you in order to beat him. You're the people I'm running for.
So suddenly, no colds. Suddenly, he was 63. You know, what happened?
Oh, well, they probably figured out the meds that they needed to give him so he could be like somewhat coherent. That's what happened. And also, another thing is he's not doing a debate. He's just talking to a crowd of his supporters. It's all that's actually skewed more in his favor than this CNN debate was. And the CNN debate was skewed in his favor enormously. All right. So that's all we got for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's great news for Trump today. It was great news for Trump. He now has immunity, which he should. He always should have immunity. I don't know why people think he shouldn't have immunity. Guess what? Saves Biden too. So, but yeah. So some great rulings the last couple of days. Curtailing federal government, taking some bullshit out of their sales. It is wonderful. Make sure you like and subscribe down below. That'd be really appreciated. Make sure you check my Rumble out wherever you're watching. That's the most important one. And yeah, I hope you all have a good day. Oh, actually, I'll do that tomorrow. I have some new followers. I forgot to give a shout out. I'll do that tomorrow. So if you're following me recently, I normally always shout out my new followers, but I forgot to. I will do that tomorrow. I hope you have a good day. Peace out, and I will see you later. Peace.